To begin this week's Talking News, we have a message from Miriam Tong, our new Chief Executive. Miriam.
Having joined the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind as Chief Executive on the 3rd of April, I'm delighted to be making this my first contribution to one of our most valued client services, the weekly Talking News. Of course, the value of the work of the Society is long established, and I feel really privileged to have this opportunity to work alongside the board, the staff team, and award-winning volunteers. We're fortunate to have such dedicated volunteers, some of whom have been providing vital services like the production of this weekly news update for many, many years. So what will I bring to the Society? Well, as a proven general manager within the charitable sector, the role of Chief Executive affords the opportunities and challenges that will fully use my broad range of skills and my experience of effective charity governance. It's very much my mission to ensure that the services we offer remain both valuable to clients and valued by supporters and stakeholders, and that we steadily broaden and strengthen our position to better serve our clients and the wider community. Presently, I'm very much on a learning curve. I'm getting to learn more about the needs of our clients, who currently number around 800 local people, and our 80 volunteers who support various society activities. I'm also rapidly learning more about the history, the governance and administration of the Society, and meeting colleagues from various local organisations with whom we have links to further our wider aims and objectives. An important initiative I'm actively working on is the planned Society Client Consultation Exercise. Through a variety of means, we plan to survey our current clients with visual impairment and also aim to reach out to potential clients, islanders who experience dual sensory loss and those more recently diagnosed with sight loss, an estimated further 800 people of all ages. More details about this will follow in the Society announcements. On completion of the exercise, the Society will have gathered much valuable information to guide us in our future plans and strategic direction, and I will have had the pleasure of getting to know many more of you, our clients, volunteers and colleagues. I trust that we will forge positive relationships and move forward together for the benefit of all of our clients and potential clients.
Hello everybody, this is Ken with this week's audio news.
And this is Anne, starting off with the Society news for Thursday 13th of April. Monday. Please note that the Society will be closed over the Easter weekend and will reopen on Tuesday the 18th of April. Tuesday. The dolphins are swimming this Tuesday, April the 18th, in Ryde at the waterside pool. This pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the dolphins, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. Wednesday. The Society Coffee Morning will be held this coming Wednesday, the 19th of April. Come and join us for a cup of coffee and a chat. Why not bring a friend along as well, as the coffee mornings are open to all. Thursday. The Knitters and Natterers will be meeting at Millbrook House this Thursday, the 20th of April, at 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. There is help for knitting of all levels, coffee and chat, and readers that will entertain you in the afternoon. Please note transport may be available to some of the groups, but please call the Society first on 522205. Any other news? There is the possibility that the Society will be in the position to offer a limited number of places for clients on a basic first aid course. The places would be subsidised by the Society and would take place at Millbrook House later this year. This notice is just to gauge interest and establish whether the scheme would be viable. So if you would be interested in taking part, please telephone or email the Society with your name and contact details. The Isle of Wight Society for the Blind 2017 Client Consultation Exercise. In the coming months, Isle of Wight Society for the Blind, the IWSB, will be inviting clients to have their say and identify their priorities in a consultation exercise that will help determine future plans and activities. Through a variety of means, we plan to survey our current clients, who number some 800 local people with visual impairment. We also aim to reach out to potential clients, islanders who experience dual sensory loss or those recently diagnosed with sight loss, an estimated further 800 people of all ages. Established in 1895, the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind is one of the oldest independent charities on the Isle of Wight. Our continuing purpose is to provide practical, emotional and educational support for visually impaired people, their families and carers, and promote awareness of the needs of those affected by sight loss among the general public. We strive to help people maintain independence, learn new skills and participate in social, physical and educational activities to reduce loneliness and isolation. Currently, we organise coffee mornings, educational talks and seminars, craft clubs, private weekly swimming sessions, walking and golf, a visiting and befriending service, a weekly audio version of the Isle of Wight County Press, and a library of audio books. To help ensure that the services we provide in the future meet the needs of our existing and potential clients, the Society will use the survey to guide and develop our strategic plans. Preliminary planning work is underway, and we aim to produce the survey in a variety of formats. This will include electronic, audio, large print and braille. It is also expected that the IWSB will recruit and train a number of volunteers to conduct the survey face-to-face and transcribe the answers. We will seek the involvement of as many local partner organisations as possible to reach both current and new clients. If you or your organisation would like to become involved in delivering this project, we would love to hear from you. So please get in touch with the team at Millbrook House. And that article was from Miriam Tong, the Chief Executive of the IWSB. Scaffolding news. Due to the Talking News being produced a day early, we have been unable to get an updated list of current scaffolding and hoardings around the island for this week. It should be available to view on the website from this Friday at www.iwsb.org.uk. This week in Touch. In Touch, in this week's episode, Balaji Srivastav is one of India's greatest sitar players and musicians. Now UK-based, he has formed the Inner Vision Orchestra, comprised of blind and visually impaired musicians from around the world. Balaji talks to Peter about his long-held passion for music, and in particular the sitar, for which he is probably best known. Corina Barr is one of the leading researchers at Harvard who has found that there are anatomical and functional differences in the brains of early blind people, which enable their occipital lobe, that's the part of the brain used for seeing, to take on other roles, including that of hearing. The effect is that a blind person may experience improved hearing as a result. And now we move on to the Isle of Wight County Press for Thursday, the 13th of April 2017. The two leading articles are Terror on the Beach and It's the Eggs Files.
Well, Terror on the Beach. Terror came to Queen Victoria's Beach at Osborne when it was enveloped in a huge wave. It swept a 66-year-old grandmother who could not swim, and her 2-year-old grandson, John, out of their depth and scattered other visitors. as the grandma struggled to keep John's head above water after the mini tsunami. Her daughter, 38-year-old speech therapist Nicola Brooke, leapt into the water. Nicola from Salisbury had been staying with her mother at Gatcombe and was enjoying a family day on the beach on Tuesday afternoon, and she said, "I was returning to the beach with my 1-year-old, and when out of the corner of my eye I saw a big wave, bigger than my mum. It covered them and swept them both out to sea. I jumped in and helped a 6-year-old girl out of the water and then swam out to my mum and my son. I was trying to hold them above water and pull them ashore, but I am not a strong swimmer myself. I looked back at the beach and people there seemed frozen, but after what seemed like a long time, people came to the water and helped us out and wrapped us in towels. They were brilliant. I had banged my leg on something when I jumped in, and I have a huge bruise, but there was a lack of interest from English Heritage staff in checking us out. And in my suggestions, signs should be erected on the beach warning people of the danger or wash from passing ships. It was a container vessel of Southampton which caused the wave. My brother has reported it to the Coast Guard to see if the ship may have been speeding. That could be the case, because I have never heard of this happening at Osborne before. But warning signs are definitely needed, and I have lost my mother. I could have lost my mother and son at the same time. Henry Barton, beach supervisor at Osborne, said, "This was the first wave of this size and we've seen since we opened the beach in 2012. We've spoken with the Queen's Harbour Master, and their view is that it is very much an isolated incident. It was upsetting for those people who were soaked, and we gave one family complimentary tickets. We do already have signs at the beach warning of the risk of both currents and tides."
It's the eggs file. A number of hens' eggs found buried in gardens in East Cowes have led to a mystery. Diana Tiller of the Greenlands Road made the strange discovery when she was digging in a flower bed last week. When she told neighbours about the eggs she found buried about 4 inches deep, they too had unearthed eggs in their gardens. "I was thinking, what nutcase has done this?" Diana said. "I've been here since the place was built in 1975 and have been gardening all that time and never heard of anything like this before. I was a bit frightened in case it really was someone who was unhinged." After finding the egg, Diana did some research and found that foxes sometimes bury eggs to dig up later. Gift to Nature manager Matt Chatfield said, "Foxes burying eggs is something I have heard people report, but I can't say I've ever known it to happen. It is certainly not common. It's not like people need to start guarding their eggs and their gardens from marauding foxes."
Unreserved apology as Isle of Wight National Health Service is censured. "We have failed our patients and the island, and we will do everything we can to turn it around." That was the message from health bosses after the Isle of Wight NHS Trust was placed in special measures yesterday, Wednesday. It will remain there for 12 to 18 months, and an improvement director will help it to access extra money and resources to turn things around. As exclusively reported by the county press last week, the Care Quality Commission slammed the Trust senior managers for being out of touch and lacking the ability to lead. while praising staff for being caring despite being overworked. Patients were exposed to unacceptable risk of harm, particularly in the mental health service, the shocking CQC report revealed. But other than the chief executive, Karen Baker's resignation, no other changes to the top team have been made. Dr. Mark Pugh, Executive Medical Director and Acting Chief Executive at Trust, said, "We absolutely accept the criticism contained in this report, and we apologise unreservedly for the failings that have been identified. I believe the board is up to the job. We will be under the most intense microscopic scrutiny over the next 12 months, or however long it takes may remain in special measures. As the medical director, if I'm not found not to be up to the job, then I would rather stand aside and let somebody else come in and do that role rather than hold back the progress of the organisation that I love and the island population that I want to do the right thing by." Eve Richardson, Trust Chairman, said, "We have let down our patients and our local community, and on behalf of the Trust Board and our staff, I apologise unreservedly for this failure. Our sole focus now is to absorb the lessons contained within this report, to develop with our partners an effective and comprehensive improvement programme, and to ensure it is implemented as swiftly as possible."
A new moth is threatening to leave conservation plans at historic Osborne House in tatters. The larvae of the moth, Monopis bilotella, could be chewing its way through the Osborne finery and artefacts at Yarmouth Castle and Carisbrooke Castle. Since making the hop across the North Sea from its native Scandinavia and the Baltic, it has found breeding conditions ideal in the south of England. The explosion in populations of the Monopis, otherwise known as the pale-backed clothes moth, and other destructive pests has meant historic houses, important interior collections, and even family homes are at risk from damage, English Heritage warned. To combat this threat, it is calling to the public to join Operation Clothes Moth and help measure the extent of the household pests. Anyone visiting an English heritage site will be able to collect a free clothes moth trap impregnated with the female moth sex femorum to place in their homes. The charity hopes to map the spread of insect pests across the country to decide what can be done. Head of Collections Conservation for English Heritage, Amber Xavier Rowe, said many people around the country will no doubt know the exasperation of finding clothes moth damage in much-loved jumpers or coats, so we want people to come to our sites, collect a free clothes moth trap and get involved. While we suspect factors including warmer weather and the increased use of heating inside homes is partly to blame, we hope this campaign helps us to better learn how to combat the rise in the clothes moth. Clothes moths, particularly the common or webbing clothes moth, Tiniola bisalella, are a common threat to the interiors as they live indoors, and their larvae feed on woolen carpets, clothing, upholstery, fur, and even taxidermy, resulting in the appearance of holes or bare patches.
£125,000 payout after X-ray error is the next headline. An X-ray error left a young man disabled and facing a hip replacement before he turns 40. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has paid 22-year-old Jake Hill £125,000 in compensation after misdiagnosis his condition as a child. Jake of the Fairway, Sandown, was just 12 years old when he first attended St Mary's Hospital suffering from a hip pain. X-rays showed a slipped joint in his left hip, but the images were misread by radiology staff. By the time Jake's condition was correctly diagnosed, the slip had been intensified from 35 degrees to 60 degrees. The delay caused Jake increased back and hip pain and a shortening of his leg, which affected the way he walked. He had needed 3 operations to alleviate the pain and is now classed as disabled. Jake is likely to develop osteoarthritis in his 30s and will require total hip replacement by the age of 40. He had been correctly diagnosed. Had he been correctly diagnosed and treated initially, he would not have needed a hip replacement until his 60s. Jake said, "My condition could have been spotted long ago, but instead it will impact the rest of my life in so many different ways. My health and resulting disability mean I can't have the career in sport that I wanted. The money is a safety net for me and my family for when I need hip operations in the future." Representing Jake, Thompson's Solicitors, which specialises in medical negligence claims, argued the misdiagnosis had caused Jake considerable difficulty in his life, including personal and financial hardship. The £125,000 compensation will go towards his future medical care. Madeline Pinsoff of Thompson said, "Jake is a very young man who has had his career options limited needlessly. Swift and accurate diagnosis is key to providing serious health problems. And when it doesn't happen, as in the case of our client, the consequences can be serious and lifelong." A spokesman for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust said, "This is a case relating back to 2007, when services were run by the Isle of Wight Primary Care Trust. This case was settled by the NHS Litigation Authority. We are pleased that this has now been settled and Jake can have some stability in the future."
If you are a chocoholic, you could do a lot worse than turn up in Cowes tomorrow. That's Friday. The Range Superstore is opening its first shop on the Isle of Wight, with the first person in the queue set to receive a huge Mars chocolate bundle worth £50. The new store is located in Place Road and will be officially opened at 9 a.m. by the chairman of Gurnard Parish Council, Councillor Sean Harrison. The Cowes branch will provide products across departments including homeware, DIY and arts and crafts. It includes an outdoor garden centre and a family cafe. There are also giveaways for the first 50 people in the queue and other activities taking place throughout the day.
Delay on roadworks. The one-way system on Chide Road and Medina Avenue, Newport, will remain in place until Monday night. Works to build a new roundabout and upgrade signalling on St George's Way are nearing completion, but cannot be finished until Southern Water installs a water supply to the Asda site. From Tuesday to Friday, April the 28th, Island roads will be undertaking night-time resurfacing on St George's Way and the adjoining section of Blackwater Road.
Scammers have been hacking into computers and emptying bank accounts, prompting one victim to speak out. When Jennifer Edglington of Honeyhill, Newport, turned on her laptop last week, a message appeared on the screen saying she had been hacked and her computer had a virus, and there was a phone number to call for help. The 44-year-old Isle of Wight Food Bank volunteer said the laptop was totally frozen. It's not like getting an email you can just delete. I just couldn't do anything except call the number. The guy gave me instructions and took control of my computer, and it was only when he asked for money that I realised what had happened. Jennifer changed her password and called her bank to prevent the scammers from emptying her account. Others weren't so lucky. I took my laptop to the PC World. They said they had been inundated with calls about the same thing. One man, a doctor, apparently had his bank account cleaned out, she said. It sounds like quite a few people are being targeted, so I want to warn people about it. I felt so stupid for falling for it. I've seen all the scam warnings, and I'd never give out my personal or bank details, but this really looked like it was genuine.
Tories target second home owners in bid for extra votes. A Conservative letter encouraging second home owners to vote in May's Isle of Wight council elections has been branded desperate and scandalous by political opponents. The letter, sent by the Isle of Wight Conservative Association and signed by its chairman, Councillor Ian Ward, a member of the Conservative Coalition Executive, is understood to have been sent to postal voters. It includes the line, "If you have a home on the mainland and the island, you are entitled to vote on both of your mainland and local election, as well as here on the island." The Electoral Commission rules state people can only vote in the area in which they are resident. The rules say whether or not you reside at an address is not defined in law. Resident is understood to mean a considerable degree of permanence. This means a person who, with two homes, who spends the same amount of time in each, can legally register at both addresses. It is unlikely that merely owning a second home used for recreation would be enough to qualify you to register to vote in that area. Simply paying council tax on a second home would also not be enough. The rules go on to state it is for the local electoral registration officer to decide if the person can be registered at both properties, and anyone seeking to do so should contact their local authority. That advice is not included in the Conservative Association letter. Isle of Wight Labour described the contents of the letter as scandalous. The idea that people who live on the mainland but who are wealthy enough to own a second home in the island should be encouraged to vote for candidates who will make decisions for those who do live here. It is disgraceful, the party said on Facebook. Green Party leader Vic Clouthian said, "As I walk the streets of towns and villages in support of excellent Green candidates, I see plenty of empty second homes where I challenge the island Conservatives to prove the owners are permanent." But Isle of Wight Council and Tory group leader, Councillor Davis Stewart, dismissed the criticism, branding the issue a storm in a teacup. Well, frankly, there's nothing happening here. Move along, please. It is in doubt. If it is in doubt, ask the returning officer of the Isle of Wight Council. Political parties all around the country write to postal voters in this way. Doubtless some of those who received my letter will be supporters of other parties. It is right they should be reminded that they have a right and arguably a duty to vote in areas where they have a home, pay a second lot of council tax and use local services.
Convicted arsonist Jerry Lee Russell was jailed for 10 months by an Isle of Wight Crown Court judge after hearing how he embarked on a late-night spree of damaging 16 cars in East Cowes. The 21-year-old of Gort Road, East Cowes, caused well over £6,000 worth of damage to parked cars in Victoria Grove, Adelaide Grove and Vectis Road during the early hours of February the 16th. He admitted 3 charges of causing criminal damage and asked for 13 other similar offences to be taken into consideration. In doing so, Russell automatically breached a suspended sentence order imposed for arson and aggravated vehicle taking in April last year. One of the vehicles smashed was a mobility car in Vectis Road, which left its disabled owner out of pocket, said Anthony Bailey, prosecuting last Thursday. An eyewitness in Adelaide Grove said she heard banging outside her home and looked out of her window and recognised Russell outside Ireland Auto Care and saw him with an accomplice kick off a wing mirror, the court was told. Russell said although he was drunk at the time and could only recall some of the damage he caused, he confessed to the rest, describing his actions to the police as stupid, pathetic and idiotic. For Russell, Natalie Wood said her client is diagnosed as having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and a drink problem, the root cause of his offending behaviour. Recorder Alistair Malcolm slammed Russell with a record of 9 convictions for 16 offences for leaving his victims upset, inconvenienced and out of pockets. He ordered Russell to pay a £100 victim surcharge, but not compensation.
Daughter praises mum's social care. Staff moved heaven and earth to help. This is the headlines. A family has been saved from heartbreak after carers were able to prevent an elderly woman with dementia from going into a home. Gwen Groves, 86, had previously been found with a soiled nappy on her dinner plate after a care company was only able to pop into her home in Ventnor a few times a day. The company said it was unable to meet her needs, and the Isle of Wight Council had struggled to find a replacement care, putting Gwen at risk of going into a home against her and her daughter's wishes. But now, thanks to the efforts of William Hodges from the Council's adult social care team, who moved heaven and earth for the family, Gwen has 2 dedicated freelance carers. Quite a change from her previous rota of 14. Her daughter, Claire Groves, 48, who lives in London, said she was overwhelmed with the changes. Both myself and my mum have been saved from heartbreak, she said. Her new carers were fantastic. I got home last night to find Mum very calm, less frustrated and agitated, very alert and knew who I was. It reminded me of how she was years ago. She's being well cared for and she is clean. The carers go out of their way to make sure Mum is okay before they leave, even going over their own time unpaid, just to make sure that she's okay. They are a blessing to them, and it's not just a job. They care out of love and compassion.
Why is no one welcome to St. Lawrence anymore? Mystery surrounds the whereabouts of the welcome signs which has disappeared in St. Lawrence. The blue Welcome to St. Lawrence and Ventnor sign, which had been taken down by Island Roads during major roadworks on Undercliff Drive and had been refurbished and resited. But last week, St. Lawrence residents reported the sign, which depicts Hygeia, the Greek goddess of health and well-being, missing. It led to a fruitless investigation into its whereabouts by Island Roads. St. Lawrence resident Sue Leeson said, "I thought our lovely sign had been removed to keep it safe while the work was going on. I hope no one has taken it and sold it on." As an act of goodwill, the PFI Highways contractor has offered to replace it. Island Roads had not authorised the removal of the sign, which we know is held in affection by the community. "We will arrange for a similar new sign to be made and erected at this site," said a spokesman. The sign is one of 3 similar welcome signs, the others being on Newport Road, Wroxall, towards Upper Ventnor, and on Leeson Road, Ventnor, on the main road from Shanklin. Historically, Hygeia was adopted by Ventnor as its patron goddess in 1890, when the town became well known as a health resort. On the Ventnor town crest, Hygeia is surrounded with wild roses. It was later adopted by former Ventnor brewers Burt's and used on its beer bottle labels.
Cows Week, no excuse for rip-off, these headlines. Cows Week could be on the verge of collapse and sailing bosses are absolutely desperate for support. But the body that organises the regatta is confident of a bright future. The town's economy has lost £500,000 after losing its main sponsors for Cows Week and the Round the Island race, according to Mark Winter, Commodore of the Island Sailing Club. Speaking at Cows Business Association's annual meeting, Mr. Winter said there would be no fireworks display, no red arrows, and no typhoon display. He urged business owners to get behind the event and not rip off visitors in high season. The situation is really grave, and just because Cows Week has been going on for so long doesn't mean we couldn't lose it altogether, he said. It absolutely depends on the sponsorship, and without it, it won't be there. We are not acting as a team at the moment, and it is very frustrating. You need to give sailors good value for money. They are not fools, and they resent being taken to the cleaners just because it is Cows Week. But Cows Week Limited spokesman said the event was in a strong position, even though it had not secured a main sponsor yet. We are expecting the inaugural edition of the Triple Crown, the mini-series for big boats, to be a huge success. It will be a regatta within a regatta. With a buoyant number of entries already taken, Cows Week 2017 should be one of the very best yet. CWL appreciates Mr. Winter's obvious enthusiasm and support, and his rallying call to encourage local businesses to support the event, and to welcome the visitors and competitors who will attend this year. Mr. Winter and the Island Sailing Club was set to make a six-figure loss and said it was absolutely desperate for help. But Kate Kirby, CBI chairman, insisted 99% of the businesses kept their prices the same all the year round. I really will not accept that on behalf of our members. The pop-up shops along the parade take all their money back to the mainland. It is not coming to Cowes, and so perhaps you should look into it. As a retailer, I can tell you we have had the worst quarter on record. We are still waiting for the good times to come, but we can't reinvest money if we are not making it in the first place.
A heroin addict was sent to prison after breaking into an activity centre where 55 children slept. Shane Hollister, aged 27, of Station Road, Sandown, broke into the Westbrook Centre in Seaview, run by Christian company Urban Saints, in August last year. He broke in with accomplice Christian West, who, after being arrested, failed to attend court. The children, aged between 8 and 14, were staying at the centre without their parents. Edward Elton, prosecuting, told the Isle of Wight County Crown Court. Andrew Graham, a member of staff at the centre, was woken at about 4:10 a.m. when the intruder entered the room where he slept. Seeing Mr. Graham, the pair apologised and crept off, but he got up to investigate and found them in the canteen. By the time Mr. Graham had alerted other staff, the pair had escaped. They took nothing and caused little damage. Defending Hollister, Russell Pine said his client had no memory of the offence, but accepted that he did it. The reason for the offending is heroin, Mr. Pine said. At the time of committing the offence, his only motivation was to scrape together the funds to buy the next bag of heroin. Mr. Pine added Hollister probably did not realise the nature of the building. Hollister was sentenced to 14 months in prison.
Seafront roadworks set to be carried out overnight. One of the road gateways to the island is set to be resurfaced next month at night to reduce disruption. Ryde Esplanade will be resurfaced in 4 phases to ensure access is maintained to the multiple transport links, bus, rail, hovercraft and White Link passenger ferry, according to Island Roads. Residents and businesses affected by the scheme which is scheduled to last between May the 2nd and May the 12th, and involves some weekend working, have received explanatory letters. Island Roads said it is also took its mobile visitor centre to the seafront to give residents and businesses the opportunity to ask questions, and local elected representatives have also been told about it. Island Roads project manager Derek Benfield said the Esplanade is clearly of major importance to the island's public transport network. So we have taken great care to plan our works in this location and sought to avoid the main summer months. In order to keep these transport hubs open during the hours of operation, we are starting work as late as 11:30 p.m. It is a complex program, but one which we are confident will keep disruption on this busy section of the road to a minimum. He said the work would complement the recently completed scheme to resurface East Hill Road, which joins the Esplanade.
A new principal has been appointed at Cowes Enterprise College. Rachel Kitley will take on the role from outgoing Principal John Peckham in September. Formerly a co-head teacher at Kingsbury High School in London, a school rated good by Ofsted, where 65% of students last year achieved good GCSEs, compared with the national average of 59.3%. Mrs. Kitley will move to the Isle of Wight with her husband and 2 children. She said, "I'm thrilled to be joining the Cowes Enterprise College and the Ormiston Academies Trust family. It is a privilege and an honour to be appointed as principal, to build on the amazing work Mr. Peckham has overseen at the Academy in recent years. Like him, I believe in the power of education to transform lives for all, and I will do everything I can to enable students at Cowes to achieve excellent outcomes at school." Mr. Peckham, who will remain at the school until February to provide advice and support, said, "Rachel Kitley is the perfect fit for our academy, and I look forward to working closely with her in the coming months as she settles into her new role. I am proud of the solid foundations that have been put in place for sustained improvement at the academy, and I look forward to watching it continue to go from strength to strength." Cowes Enterprise College is quickly becoming a school of choice on the island, with Year 7 applications up 13% since 2014. The number of students completing Year 13 has trebled, and more students than ever are going to the Russell Group universities. Mrs. Kitley is joining at a great time, and I know the academy community will join me in welcoming her with open arms. Ormiston Chief Executive Toby Salt said, "Mrs. Kitley has the experience, passion and commitment to continue to drive the success of the academy and to build on the brilliant leadership team which has already achieved such great results." Chair of Governors David Sword said, "After a highly competitive recruitment process, we are delighted to appoint Mrs. Kitley. She has the drive, ambition and vision to continue to build on the foundations that Mr. Peckham has laid and to take our academy forward."
Lovely Care Home gets a good rating. A care home where meal times are a social event and with decorated tables, menus and napkins, and activities include day trips, live music, pampering sessions and a fabulous Christmas party, has been rated good by Watchdogs. Following a snap inspection over 2 days in January, the Care Quality Commission rated the Orchard at Fairley Road, Newport, good in all areas and found it was safe, caring and well led. Improvements have been made since its last inspection in December 2015, when it was given a required improvement rating. Inspectors praised the nursing home's well-trained staff, who treated residents with dignity and respect. According to the inspection report, staff spoke to people with kindness and warmth and were observed laughing and joking with them. They spoke fondly about the people they supported and expressed a commitment to treating them very well. One staff member told inspectors, "You have time to chat to people and get to know them." Another said, "I love the residents, they're like my family." Residents had a key worker and care plans detailing their care needs, preferences and information about their life history to help staff understand what might be important to them. They were encouraged to remain independent and decide on what to eat and where, and how to decorate their rooms and spend their time. Families were invited to take part in activities and social events, and the home had forged links with local schools and charities. 54 people currently live at the Orchard, run by Barchester Healthcare, including people with dementia. Manager Gaynor Reid said, "We are delighted Orchard House was rated good in all 5 key areas. The team always strives to provide the best possible quality care for everyone who lives in the home. One resident said, "I have one word to describe this place: lovely."
A new Isle of Wight High Sheriff has been sworn in at Osborne House. The new High Sheriff of the island, Ben Rouse, has been sworn into his role at a ceremony held at Osborne House. Mr. Rouse, the boss of financial services firm Rouse Limited, based in Newport, took over from Robin Courage for his 12-month term of office on Monday. Mr. Rouse was born in Bonchurch and is the youngest of 6 children. He's a former rugby player with the Isle of Wight Rugby Club and a keen motorcyclist. And there will be a full interview with Mr. Rouse in next week's County Press.
Donkeys join in Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday celebrations were held at venues across the island as Christians celebrated one of the most important days of the year. 2 very special donkeys from the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary teamed up with joint choirs from St. Peter's Church, Shorewell, and St. Mary's Church, Bryston, to lead parishioners in a celebration bathed in spring sunshine. Members of the benefice of Shorewell, Bryston, Brook and Motterstone paraded through Shorewell from the village hall where the palms were blessed to St. Peter's Church where the service was held. Meanwhile, Jack and Jill, 2 donkeys from Carisbrooke Castle, did the opposite of their nursery rhyme namesakes and went down the hill from St. Nicholas in Castro to St. Mary's Church, Carisbrooke, leading a parade of parishioners carrying palm crosses. And at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary in Wroxall, around 50 people attended to service and parade, led by donkeys and conducted by the Reverend Keith Adam from Wroxall Parish Church and lay minister Rita Goddard.
Sunshine Radio has enjoyed a spruce-up ahead of its increased broadcasting hours and takeover of the Isle of Wight National Health Service Trust's airways. Since the beginning of the month, the hospital radio station has increased its broadcast hours from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. 7 days a week. It will also be broadcasting over the internet and will soon be on in GP surgeries, care homes, pharmacies, outpatients' waiting rooms, hospital restaurants and Friends of St Mary's Cafe, among others. The refurbishment is thanks to donations from Ireland businesses and the hard work of studio manager James Harwood and support from chairman and presenter James Wilson. Mr. Harwood secured new carpets from Abbott's Flooring, studio chairs from Better Pack, a sofa from Stay Sofas, a stair lift from First Choice, cabinets from Howden's, a water cooler from White Crystal, and photo frames from Frame That Photo. Mr. Wilson is also handling the development of a new website, courtesy of the Isle of Wight Computers Geek. Mr. Harwood said, "It's just a case of ringing round and seeing if people will donate. Some people say yes, some people will just say no. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but you do come across those who give generously." Well, that's all we have time for today. So it's goodbye from Anne.
And goodbye for myself, Ken. Bye.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen.
And I'm Alison.
And we'll be reading the letters and features of the County Press today. Starting with readers' letters, the letter of the week. Headlined Musical Youth Got It Just Right. That's a letter from Ben Houghton of Newport. I was looking forward to the celebration concert at the Medina Theatre last Sunday, but didn't expect to be entertained by such a remarkably professional group of young musicians. At times there seemed to be no difference between their performance and an adult symphony orchestra, particularly in Sibelius's Finlandia. The string section is usually the weak link in a young orchestra, but this expectation was quickly dismissed in Warlock's Capriole Suite, followed by other music requiring some very challenging and tricky string playing. For a very moderate cost, this was a wonderful way of experiencing real music played by really confident musicians, as well as renewing faith in our younger generation. It seems the joining of our own island musical talent with that of the Southampton Music Hub is to be a happy and productive partnership, and I really look forward to their next concert. Hopefully there will be an even larger audience at that event, which this ensemble surely deserves.
Why I didn't want to remain leader, a letter from Jonathan Bacon. I'm writing to set the record straight on the reasons why I stepped down from the position of leader of the Isle of Wight Council in January this year. It has come to my attention that the Isle of Wight Conservative Association has circulated a letter to postal voters, and some candidates are making statements in their election literature about my resignation, which are somewhat economical with the reality of the situation. I made it clear in my statements at the time that it had become impossible to continue to run the council as a minority administration due to the fact the Conservative opposition had formed an alliance with UKIP and ex-independent members with whom they had been working, largely covertly, for some time. They were using 2 votes out of 40 in the council. They were using those 21 votes out of 40 in the council chamber to block and undermine the work of the council, rather than being prepared to take any responsibility or do anything to any positive end or purpose. The existence of this alliance was, of course, revealed when the new executive, appointed by Councillor Stewart, contained 4 of these members, and subsequently by the changed allegiances of some others in the election nominations this month. I did not state a legal budget could not be set. The issue was whether an acceptable budget could be set. It was clear the Conservative-UKIP alliance planned to undermine our efforts to produce something acceptable. It produced a budget which concentrated on increased council tax, cuts and bizarre expenditure proposals, including spending over £1 million on county hall facilities. The independent alternative budget, as well as other alternatives put forward, showed a more creative approach could be taken, but it was clear these would have been blocked. As I said in January, the key problem facing the island is the failure of the government to help the island. Following the coming election, we need a council which contains a majority of members who can unite to challenge this stance and support the island, rather than an administration more concerned with obeying the directions of party overlords in Westminster.
And now a letter from Mike Hales of Cornwall, headlined Motorbike Maniacs Harming Tourism. Does the Isle of Wight have a police force? Presumably so. But does it do anything? My wife and I recently visited the island for a few days' holiday. Indeed, we are thinking of relocating there from Cornwall, since we like it so much. But our visit was almost shattered by the marauding gangs of motorcyclists who seem to take delight in using the island's roads as a racetrack. This happened several times as we drove around. In one instance, we were on the straight road from Cowes towards Yarmouth, when yet another gang of bikers appeared coming the other way. 2 of them were on my side of the road, clearly racing at very high speed and playing chicken to see which would make it first to the gap between my car and vehicles on the other side of the road. It was a terrifying experience. I don't care if these hooligans wrap themselves round a tree, but endangering the lives of my family in this way is utterly unacceptable. The police must be aware this goes on. Why are they not in evidence, ready to arrest these lunatics and crush their machines at the earliest opportunity? The reputation of the island as a tourist destination is in serious danger while this menace persists.
We are heading for another nice mess, from Simon Rhodes in Knighton. Here we go again. The Isle of Wight Council has been given a grant of £9.5 million to ease traffic flows around Newport. The consultants will be sharpening their pencils in eager anticipation of more easy money. Looking at previous history with the council, we have seen £31,000 on a 13-page report on car parking, hundreds of thousands on the waste and road contracts, and who could forget the fiasco of the Undercliff Drive, £4.5 million in consultancy and other fees, and not a bit of tarmac laid. Anyone caught up in the mess of the highway improvements by the new Asda store will know how completely inept at organising anything to do with the road system the council is. The chaos and inconvenience caused by such a simple job has been staggering, and quite why it has taken so long to put in a roundabout is beyond explanation. So it will be interesting to see where the grant money goes. More consultants to write down the blindingly obvious, more traffic lights to slow the traffic flows, and the result, the usual lame excuses when it doesn't work. We are burdened on the island with a hopeless council, poor NHS management and poor schools management. The staff who actually do the work are usually hard-working and effective, but those who manage them apparently haven't got a clue. They just reach out for the consultants. Oh great, local elections are coming up, but judging by recent performances by all parties, it will be a choice between Laurel and Hardy.
Now we have a letter from John Byers of Freshwater, headlined Memories of Golf Star Visiting Island. I was interested to read the article in the County Press of the 31st of the 3rd on Peter Allis playing an exhibition match at Freshwater Bay Golf Club in the 60s. I was a member of the club in the 1960s, and I cannot remember Peter Allis playing an exhibition match there. It might be confused with another match, also in the 1960s, which took place at Shanklin and Sandown Golf Club. I took the afternoon off work to watch Peter play the Sandown course, and very entertaining it was too. Invited to play with him was Roger Matthews, the then professional at Sandown, Alan Pemberton, owner of Freshwater Bay Golf Club, a gentleman who played around the scratch mark, and Mr. H. Minchin, who was the previous captain. I do remember Peter Allis getting a birdie at the first hole with a driver, 7-iron and putt. I also remember him going out of bounds at the 17th, playing 3 off the tee and hitting the next ball 2 feet from the hole.
Footprint Trust, so efficient at keeping me warm and cosy. We have a letter from Janet Price at Northwood, a member of the Isle of Wight's Society for the Blind. As a visually impaired person, I wish to thank the island's Footprint Trust. I thought I needed a new night storage heater, but Trust staff kindly and efficiently put my existing one on the correct times, so instead of being cold every evening, I have been nice and warm and cosy all winter. I should have contacted them months before, so if anybody is in need of help with energy issues, please contact the Footprint Trust on 822282. They are very skilled and fine people, and a pleasure to have them in the home. Again, thank you to the Footprint Trust.
And now we have a letter headlined Going Private from Tony Toller of Totland. As an Isle of Wight resident, a substantial amount of the council and other taxes I pay each year is used to provide vital schooling for our children. What right does Mr. Platt think he has to abuse this investment by withdrawing his children from the educational system just to suit his personal needs? The government is absolutely right to take a stand on this. About a quarter of each year is allocated to holidays, and the rest of the time no child should be excused from attending school. Mr. Platt is now threatening to take his children out of the state system and send them to private school. Brilliant. If he goes on holiday in term time, it will be his money being wasted, not mine. I think he will find, however, private schools have an equally tough policy on this.
Nutcracker sweet next to my staff gift, says Rod Warren from Newport. I read the article about NHS staff receiving a nutcracker as a long service award with bemusement. I just wanted to assure the staff that they are not alone in receiving inappropriate awards. Last year I was invited to attend a long service presentation by my employer for 25 years service, albeit that I'd worked there nearly 30 years. Despite the lateness of several years due to an administrative error, our staff are our most important asset, I inquired as to what gift I would receive. I wasn't expecting hundreds of pounds as those before me years ago used to get, but I was surprised when I was told it would be a paperweight. When was the last time you, or anyone you know, went heading into town to buy one of these? Slightly ironic when the council is an advocate of the paperless office. I then inquired further as to whether I could have the money equivalent and was told, no, we have a box of them to get rid of because we over-ordered and until they're gone we won't do anything else. I subsequently refused my gift at the presentation and I am now the proud owner of a sheet of A4 card, a certificate for my 30 years' efforts.
And now a letter from Jenny Giovanazzi of Rupley, and headlined Passport to Happiness. I would like to thank the kindly stranger who found my lost passport and handed it in at Chale Green stores for me to collect. Next week, my fiancé and I are visiting the Italian side of my family in their new home of Egypt. Given the fragile Trump-imposed situation in terms of aviation within the area, a passport-related panic is undesirable when trying to convince my Catholic family I wish to marry a thrice-divorced atheist.
Roud now in rude health, reports Christine Brown from God's Hill. I'm sure the residents of Roud will join me in thanking Island Roads for an excellent service in resurfacing the hamlet. Special thanks to Foreman Kevin and his crew, Jason, Neil, Gary and Sean, for their hard work, commitment and pride in their work, which is often sadly lacking today.
Okay, and now we have the looking back section of the County Press. 100 years ago, April the 14th, 1917. The Easter holiday was a quiet one in Shanklin. The cinema was most profitable, as no concert or indoor attraction had been arranged and the weather was unsettled. The Royal Naval College at Osborne was again struck by a measles epidemic. The college answered allegations in the press by stating there was less sickness among the cadets than would occur among any like number of boys the same age.
75 years ago today, April the 18th, 1942, a reminder of a former Sandown industry was unearthed during the digging of Brown's golf course to plant foodstuffs. It was a glass lemonade bottle with a glass stopper in the neck, inscribed Sandown Mineral Water Works, made on a site in St John's Road opposite the Commercial Hotel. More than 276 runners representing the Isle of Wight's military units took part in a 6-mile cross-country race, starting and finishing at the recreation ground at Parkhurst. The county press reported it was a fine sight to see the runners dash away in their journey through the forest, Carisbrooke and Gunville.
50 years ago, April the 15th, 1967, much to the annoyance of passengers, the waiting room at Newport bus station was closed because of vandalism. Mr. H. Harding, General Manager of Southern Vectis, said the decision to close the waiting room every evening at 6:30 p.m. was taken by the traffic manager, Mr. D.F. How? After some young fools had set fire to a waste paper bin. A well-known cow's landmark disappeared when the giant Princess flying boat made its last journey across the Solent to a Southampton scrapyard. Of the 3 craft developed by Saunders Roe Limited at a total cost of £10 million, the craft was the only one to fly.
25 years ago, on April the 17th, 1997, 5 generations of an East Cowes family were reunited at a special birthday party to celebrate the head of the family's 100th birthday. Mrs. Flo Tong shared her party at Solent View Residential Home with her 5 children, 10 grandchildren, 15 great-grandchildren and 5 great-great-grandchildren. For one grandchild, the journey from Australia was too far, but the centenarian was happy to receive a surprise phone call from Brisbane. And a disused Ryde Hotel was engulfed in flames in a mystery fire early on Saturday morning, leaving the 4-storey building a blackened shell without floors or a roof. The fire, involving part of the former Solent Court Hotel on the Esplanade, came just hours after a fishing boat moored at the nearby Ryde Harbour was destroyed. Police are probing both incidents.
And 10 years ago, on April 13th, 2007, Yarmouth RNLI was set to become the star of BBC documentary Seaside Rescue. To catch all the drama, a 3-man production team planned to station themselves in the town for 3 months. The filming has only just started. I think it will work well. We feel honoured to be asked to take part, said coxswain Howard Lester. And also 10 years ago, it took 18 months for this slippery reunion, but a missing snake was finally reunited with its owner. Archibald, a Mexican black king snake, disappeared in 2005 and was presumed to be long gone, but he was found sunning himself in the Newport garden over the Easter weekend. Owner Daniel Hodgson, who's 22, said, "I'm really shocked. He was lucky not to get caught by the lawnmower. He was found next to a hole in the ground and he must have been hiding in there."
Now we're going to move on to White Memories. Ireland in the pink and white and blue. Have you ever wondered why at one stage in modern Ireland football history strips looked like an explosion in a paint factory? Well, one entrepreneurial Ireland sportswear man was responsible. Roger Sanders, of Sanders Sports fame, was reminded of the surprising, and some might say garish, nature of the shirts when going through a box of old photographs. Now the secret of how Ireland teams came to turn out in pinks and mind-bending patterns can be revealed. Sanders Sports opened in 1991, and part of its business was supplying the kits to the Isle of Wight clubs and schools. A tie-up with a manufacturer in the Midlands enabled Roger to access fabrics from the leading suppliers in Britain. At this time, they had just developed a printing process which enabled them to create many wacky designs, said Roger. As much of this was for large brands, there was often surplus material available, so Ireland football teams could be wearing the same quality kit as a team playing in the World Cup. Sanders Sports was instrumental in changing the perception of kits for clubs at the lower end of the football pyramid. Not only did it have a long association with clubs on the island, but also supplied the teams such as Weymouth, Eastleigh and Bashley.
Okay, and now we have the My View column, a column by Amy Mackleton. Is this what we want for our NHS? A recent letter to the papers claimed the UK needs someone like Donald Trump in charge to make Britain great again. But the latest American president is inherently sexist, and his policies are so at odds with British values, it's impossible to comprehend how anyone believes him to be a positive influence. And this is no more evident than in the president's approach to healthcare. Since taking office, Trump has been striving to make healthcare less accessible for individuals living with pre-existing conditions and those unable to afford comprehensive insurance plans. Nothing fills me with more dread than the idea healthcare in Britain will be privatised, and I know I'm not alone in having this opinion. Sure, our health service has its challenges, but the alternative is terrifying. I have multiple sclerosis and receive monthly treatment to stop the condition progressing. As St Mary's is a relatively small hospital, my treatment isn't offered there. Instead, I attend Southampton General every 4 weeks as an outpatient and receive an infusion, which takes about 2 hours each time. I've been receiving this treatment for the past 3 years, and my condition hasn't worsened during that time as a result of it. While the journey can be taxing and costly, it's nothing compared to the bill I'd receive if I had to pay for my own treatment. Is travelling to Southampton for medical care ideal? Nope. But some patients in Britain travel much further to receive treatment. Plus, postcode lotteries are still a reality for people with chronic conditions, with options being limited depending on where a person lives. My treatment costs upwards of £4,000 a month in the US. It's unlikely any insurance policy would cover the condition.
Travelling to the mainland to get treatment, especially when you're ill, is inconvenient and challenging. But the alternative, in my opinion, is much more terrifying. I might have to pay for buses, taxis and the ferry to Southampton, which is subsidised by Red Funnel for those attending hospital appointments. But, compared to the cash I'd be expected to pay elsewhere, I'm grateful for the NHS and the fact that I have been prescribed a treatment that works for me at the moment. With Trump in charge, the NHS would almost certainly be less generous, which is a terrifying prospect for anyone in my situation. If you don't have a long-term health condition or have never contracted an unexpected illness, you might not comprehend just how great the NHS is. But just imagine what would happen if your circumstances changed, if life-saving interventions weren't offered free of charge, albeit a ferry trip away. What would you do?
And now a column by Jonathan Young, headlined, "Festival Owned? Surely stuff just happens." If you'd told the kids at the 1970 Isle of Wight Festival the event was being sold, we'd not have had a clue what you were talking about. Even now, to those of us who helped to make that little bit of island history, the recent news something called Live Nation Entertainment has acquired a majority stake in the event makes for a puzzling concept. For our anarchic generation, stuff just happened. In the case of the festival, one of your mates told you about it, you paid some bloke £3 for a ticket and hoped it was genuine, you turned up with or without a tent, you got smashed and you didn't worry too much about washing or where you answered the call of nature. If you lived in the West Wight, as I did, then you could get off home to bed at night, or maybe around dawn, but that would rather have been defeating the object. For some reason, the stone shelter and Freshwater Bay promenade seemed a much more sensible choice, although you probably didn't light barbecues on the golf course or go nude bathing in case your mother found out. Oh Calcutta was playing in the West End. The Daily Mail, I think it was, came up with Oh Freshwater as their take on the festival shenanigans. And if anyone had a majority stake in it, it was us kids, as rather succinctly demonstrated when the perimeter fence was torn down. Organisers gave up trying to collect money and retreated with wheelbarrows filled with what takings they had, and the event was declared free. And then there was the music, of course. The fact the 1970 acts represented probably the most complete collection of popular music talent assembled, either before or since, wasn't, I think, at the time properly appreciated. Hendrix, Cohen, The Who, Jethro Tull, The Doors, Donovan, Joni Mitchell, Joan Baez, Procol Harum. For goodness sake, how many headliners is that? Oh, and that Paul Nuttall, of course, he was definitely there, aged -7 at the time. How very different now. Festivals, including the reincarnated Isle of Wight one, have been gentrified beyond recognition. The 1970 £3 ticket, if inflated to today's prices, would cost £45, but in fact comes in at £195, with £49.50 discounted day ticket for islanders apparently regarded as a bargain.
And with rising prices comes a rise in the age and affluence and expectations of the patrons. The acts pack up at bedtime, glamping has entered the vocabulary, and, according to John Giddings, about a third of those attending actually choose not to spend their nights on the site, but retire to a hotel or a nice bed and breakfast. Whether all of this should be regarded as progress, I couldn't say. Today's youth culture is different, and since culture is just about voluntary, they would presumably prefer it that way, and good luck to them. Nonetheless, and call it sloppy sentimentality, if you will, there are still those of us who think the youth culture of the 60s and 70s definitely had something going for it. Just recently, some of us met up at the Shanklin Theatre to catch Gilbert O'Sullivan on his sellout 50th anniversary tour. He asked the front row what sort of tea they'd drank, then he sang a song about tea. He'd released it in 2011, having already crossed the bus pass Rubicon, clearly intent on reconnecting with his core supporters. It worked. We loved it. We sang along. It even got us in the mood for dancing in the aisles, after a fashion, when we got to Matrimony and Get Down. It was a far cry from those muddy East Afton fields, but we were the lucky ones. A few days later, Gilbert's voice packed up and he had to scrub several dates from his tour. We're none of us getting any younger.
And now the Behind the news column by Hayden Taylor, who meets islanders who want to make a difference to the Syrian people. People before politics for islanders helping those in peril in Syria. It can be difficult to truly appreciate the horrors of the civil war in Syria. An estimated 5 million people have been displaced from their homes, entire cities have been levelled, and last week we had the horrors of the gas attack on civilians. Now entering its 8th year, the conflict has claimed more than 400,000 lives, around 3 times the population of the island. The reality is overwhelming and near impossible to process outside our British frame of reference. Despite what may seem like an insurmountable problem, here on the Isle of Wight there are people like Chloe Wells and Laura Stickbury who are doing their bit to help. In the winter of 2014, it was reported 6,000 people froze to death in refugee camps in the Middle East. Chloe, 28, said, "There's so many terrible unnecessary deaths, but those ones specifically were due to a lack of humanitarian aid." Chloe and Laura, both from Knighton and with young children, run the island branch of Samara's Aid, a national charity set up by Brighton mother Samara Levi to provide humanitarian aid in the Middle East. Over the past 2 years, they've helped clothe 5,000 refugees, sent countless boxes of everyday essentials, and helped foster a community of volunteers here on the island. Chloe added, "Even though the politics of it is totally alien, we do know how to provide a blanket to keep a baby warm. It seemed like something we could actually do." In an effort to provide good quality, warm clothes, the pair head up the knitting group in Knighton. "I don't knit at all. I just do the logistics side of things," said Laura, who's 30. The knitting has been really positive because it's a way people can actually use a skill. It's not something that involves a lot of money. It's just a genuine skill people have and they are making something with love, and it goes towards helping clothe a baby or keeping a family warm. It's actually quite empowering for people to be involved in that kind of thing. They're really able to contribute and use their skill and talent to achieve something practical. It all began with a collection of 40 aid boxes in April 2015, but has since grown to thousands, with similar operations setting up around the island and channeling through Chloe and Laura. "It's been really amazing," said Chloe. "It's brought people out of the woodwork and a lot of community groups have gotten involved." In Ryde, former nurse Gillian Bamber, who's 48, has rallied her friends and the congregation of St James's Church. For her birthday in November, Gillian asked people to fill up care packs instead of giving her presents.
"I just think the whole situation is horrifying," she said. "I thought, I can't watch this anymore on the television. I need to do something about this." Gillian, who is now a collector for her area, met Chloe in September 2015 after searching online for how she could help locally. "People want to do something to help and they just need to be given a tool with which to do it," she added. While the need for warm clothes to face harsh winters is an obvious one, Chloe and Laura have also been part of the collaborative effort to establish dignity bags as a national scheme. Piloted here on the island, the packs include things such as sanitary products, towels, washing powder, soap and toothbrushes. Laura said, "It's all those practical things that if you were living in limited accommodation, people just wouldn't have access to. It's hard enough dealing with these things when you're living in relative comfort, but when you're faced with not having running water or being able to keep yourself clean, it really just brings it home that trying to have a little bit more dignity would make a huge difference to women." In total, they've sent 500 dignity bags to the Middle East, 320 of which were in January this year alone. "We have been overwhelmed by support from people on the island," added Chloe. "The outpouring of love from the community is quite overwhelming for me to see." The next collection planned on the island is September, and Chloe and Laura hope to get more schools involved, especially with smiley bags, which are filled with toys and have a message written in Arabic from island children. Chloe added, "Samara always says, if we save one life, the whole thing is worth it." If you would like to get involved, you can contact their Facebook page, Samara's Aid, Isle of Wight.
And now a collection of what's on items from the county press, the first of which is a choir's charity concert. The Phoenix Choir performs at All Saints Church, Ryde, next Saturday, April the 22nd. The relationship counselling organisation Relate and St John Ambulance will benefit from a retiring collection made after the concert. The 50-strong mixed choir boasts a repertoire from Pavarotti to Presley.
Celtic Connections St George's Day Concert, Sunday the 23rd of April at Ventnor Winter Gardens, starts at 2 p.m, featuring The Crew, White Hot Pipes, Last Orders and Bloodstone Border Morris. There's a bar available and tickets are £10 on the door or at the box office.
And now news of the Newport Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend, which takes place from the 1st to the 4th of June, featuring the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, the Leanne Carroll Trio, Vasilis Xenopoulos and Nigel Price, the Derek Nash Quintet, David Newton and Alan Barnes, Nicky Isles and Stan Saltzman, Liz Fletcher and Zoe Rachman, the Nick Page Quintet, the Sandy Sushadolski Trio, the Savoy Collection, the Nate Najar Trio and the Alley Cats, plus much more. See their website for details, that's at newportjazzweekend.co.uk. Also, tickets are on sale in the Isle of Wight County Press shop as of now.
The Earl Mountbatten Hospice is celebrating 35 years of serving the Isle of Wight. There will be a concert with Elena Margolina as pianist on Saturday the 29th of April at 7:30 p.m. at the John Cheverton Centre. Admission is £10 and it includes wine and canapes and there's no need to book.
Now news of a concert from the Tritone Singers, directed by Richard Wilkins, entitled My Spirit Sang All Day. It's a concert of a cappella choral music from the 16th and 20th centuries, featuring a 4-part mass by Byrd, Quatre Motets 10 by Durufle, and 7 poems of Robert Bridges by Finzi. That's at St John's Church, Newport, on Saturday 22nd of April from 7:30 p.m. You can phone Isle of Wight 567 471 to obtain tickets, which cost £8.
And the Vintage Motorcycle Club is having a vintage historic classic motorcycle show on Saturday the 22nd of April between 10 and 4. They say, join us undercover at the Ventnor Winter Gardens. Entry is £2 and there is a bar and restaurant.
And now news of a Legends of Swing Unplugged concert featuring the music of Mac Monroe and Frank Sinatra. This will be by vocalist Anthony Adams, as seen on BBC TV's The One and Only Tribute Show, and also featuring the Legends of Swing Jazz Quartet. That's on the 22nd of April at 7:30 p.m. You can call the box office on 01983 3 00066 and adult tickets cost £10.
The Island Savoyards present Jekyll and Hyde, the musical, at the Shanklin Theatre on the 13th to the 16th of April at 7:30 p.m. and on the 17th at 2:30 p.m. Tickets are £15 for adults and £10 for children. The box office is 868 000.
And now news of a commemorative event for the ORP Błyskawica. It's a 75th anniversary event, and it's the Polish ship that defended Cowes in 1942. From Thursday the 4th to Sunday the 7th of May, it will feature a visit of Polish and Royal Naval ships, a Polish food market at King Square in East Cowes, a photographic and heritage exhibitions in Cowes and East Cowes, the Karpaty Polish dance troupe, a children's painting display, the Mile of Pennies wartime reenactment, a radio link to Błyskawica from Cowes Parade, and commemoration ceremonies. There will also be a gala piano recital at the Royal Yacht Squadron, a Polish naval band at Cowes Yacht Haven, and the Ave Verum Choir at St Mary's Church in Cowes. Online booking now open at www.ticketsource.co.uk/islandconcerts.
See jazz at its best at Apollo. Traditional jazz at its best will be performed at the Apollo Theatre Newport at the end of this month. The Chris Pierce Soprano Jazz Band will be playing at the theatre next Sunday, April the 23rd at 3 p.m, courtesy of Newport Jazz Club. Anyone wanting to reserve tickets can call 523-879 or 730-601 or obtain them on the door if available.
And now news of a lecture by Richard III's escort. From flying machines to photography, the Victorians were a famously inventive bunch. But did you know they also created, through art, architecture and literature, the medieval age of chivalry, that era of pomp and pageantry, of romance and adventure, of daring knights in shining armour embarking on noble quests to rescue damsels in distress? Anyone interested in finding out more has a golden opportunity to do so thanks to the Vectis Decorative Fine Arts Society, the DFAS. It has invited jouster, academic and one of the two horsemen in full armour who escorted the remains of King Richard III on his final journey to Leicester Cathedral, Tobias Capwell, to give its latest lecture. Tobias, a professional jouster who has competed all over the world and the curator of arms and armour at London's Wallace Collection, will give a lecture at Key Arts on Thursday entitled Romance, Pageantry and Mud, the Eglinton Tournament and Victorian Medievalism. Fittingly, it will be held 3 days before St George's Day, the granddaddy of sword-wielding, dragon-slaying knights everywhere. Doors open at 6:30 p.m, with the lecture at 8 p.m. For further details, ring Key Arts.
Air search after burglary. An air search failed to find burglars who broke into a cow shop. The National Police Air Service helicopter, which is based at Bournemouth Airport, was mobilised after reports of a burglary at Cameo of Cows just after midnight on Tuesday. A police spokesman said, "Offenders broke in but were disturbed, causing them to leave. A number of items were stolen, including iPhones and designer watches. A till containing cash was also stolen. Officers attended the scene to conduct a search of the area, assisted by NPAS. No arrests have been made at this stage and investigations are ongoing. Contact 101, quoting 4417-013-4650 with any information."
And now a news item about the new floating bridge. Bridge number 6 is a £3.2 million new arrival. The new £3.2 million floating bridge, whatever it might be called, has arrived. The bridge, which has been under construction for nearly 2 years by Welsh firm Mainstay Marine, was towed from Milford Haven to the Medina in an operation which started on Thursday and was completed at 11 a.m. on Saturday. The 6th chain ferry since the service began in 1859 is being placed on its chains on Monday, April 24th. It is initially on a temporary mooring at White Shipyard in East Cowes and scheduled to enter service on May the 5th after trials and staff training. The Isle of Wight Council is considering a name, having done a U-turn and agreeing to consider Floaty McFloatface. When it comes into service, fares will rise from £1 to £1.50 and, for Saver card holders, from 70p to £1.
Charity game for Joe Ellis Trust. Police officers will go up against NHS workers in a charity football match. The game at St George's Park, Newport, on Sunday, April the 30th, will raise money for the Joe Ellis Trust. The day will be packed with family entertainment, hot food and drinks. Adults are asked to make a donation of £3 and under 16s are asked to give £1. Gates open at 3:15 and the match kicks off at 4 p.m.
Okay, that's all from us this week. So it's goodbye and a happy Easter from Stephen.
And Alison.
Goodbye.
This is a download from the BBC. For more information and our terms of use, go to www.bbc.co.uk/in touch. Tonight, is blind people's hearing really better than other people's? It's often claimed that it is, but what's the evidence for it? And we're joined, as our guest, by one of India's finest and most versatile instrumentalists. Would you just like to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you very much. My name is Baluji Srivastav from Inner Vision Orchestra. And I've got this beautiful instrument which goes like this.
We'll hear more from that a little later in the programme. You're particularly known for your playing of sitar and tabla, but you play a whole host of instruments, don't you? Traditional Indian instruments. Yeah.
Yes, I play sitar, dilruba, tabla, pakhavaj, harmonium, so many instruments, different instruments.
And what's the one, because you've got one, a little instrument that I've never come across before. Can you describe that to us?
This is called gupi from West Bengal, and it's a fisherman's instrument. And it's a one-stringed instrument. Normally it is on pumpkin gourd, but it is on the wooden box.
That's the sort of deep, wide bit, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And with a skin attached. And then it has got the bamboo stick, long bamboo stick. And the other side of the bamboo stick, there is a peg. So I can tune and untune. But this is the only instrument in the world which can be untuned and still can be played. Untune like that, and then I can play.
It's got an incredibly deep sound for a small instrument, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, because the skin is there.
Right. Now, of course, I'll have to stop you there. I mean, the thing is, you're very well known in this country for your sitar playing. I'm just wondering how that all began. When did you first hold a sitar?
When I was 8 years old, I was playing in my blind school orchestra, and suddenly my hand went to this beautiful instrument. And I didn't know, my teacher wouldn't give me because I might break it. And it's such a fragile instrument. Sitar is very fragile. So I insisted, cried, and finally he gave me. And he was surprised that first time I held the sitar and I could hold it and play some tunes, started playing tunes.
And do you remember how it made you feel the first time you did that?
It was very exciting for me. First of all, I was very nervous, so I could not hold it. So he had to hold my sitar as well with me. So I don't drop it. And then slowly he let it go. And then I played few tunes.
And did you have that sense that this was going to be something that was very important to your life, your work, really?
No.
Not then?
No. My fingers were hurting and I said to my teacher, I can't play this instrument anymore. It hurts my finger. He said, no, your instrument, this is your instrument. This is with you all your life.
Well, Baluji, I want you to talk more about your more recent collaborative work with other blind musicians a bit later. First, though, I think this is relevant given what you've just said to us. I'd like you to listen to this story that we're reporting on. It's often assumed that blind people have better hearing than everyone else, which in some mysterious way compensates us for our lack of sight. Now, I don't know about you, but I have to admit I've always been pretty sceptical about this. You know, I tend to suggest to people when they ask me that if our hearing appears to be better, it's because we need to use our ears more to make up for our lack of sight. And therefore, you know, we're concentrating more. But it seems this might be oversimplistic on my part, because at the Sheephan's Eye Institute, which has links to Harvard Medical School in Boston, they've been doing work which seems to confirm that when parts of the brain aren't used for what they were intended, they take on other roles. So, for instance, the part of the brain designed to process what people see, finding itself underemployed, might take on jobs like hearing, smell and touch. Well, Karina Bauer is one of the people leading the research. She's been telling me what they did and how they did it.
In our study, we did something called resting state. So it's kind of how the brain is connected when your mind is wandering, not when you're doing a particular task. So what we observed was that the occipital cortex is connected to other sensory areas, and that has been demonstrated in the literature as well. So the thought is that there's a compensatory mechanism going on where the typically visual brain starts to take over other non-visual functions.
So when people talk about compensation, there really is, in a sense, compensation. I mean, sometimes, it's almost suggested that there's almost a kind of religious element to it. You get something extra because of what you've lost. But it is right, in a way, to use the term compensation.
It is, but I think it's a little unknown at this point whether or not it is like what you mentioned earlier, if it's simply because the other senses are used more, so then the connections develop more because they're used, or if it's that there's some underlying neuroplastic compensatory mechanism where the other senses just naturally take over. It's not really clear right now, the underlying reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Now, just tell me a bit more about the experiment. I mean, how many people did you look at?
We had 12 early blind and we had 16 controls.
Right, so they could have been doing anything, as it were, and 12 were either blind from birth or from very young age?
Yes, that's correct. From birth or prior to the age of 3.
And what level of sight loss did they have?
The majority had just light perception, and a few had no light perception. And they were from a variety of different causes, such as Leber's, congenital amaurosis, retinopathy of prematurity, infection, RP, so a variety of different causes.
Right, so there were different causes, but you were strict about how early they were blind from.
Yes, we were fairly strict about how early, in part because by the age of 3, your visual system is still developing and you won't have visual memories by that age.
Could there not still be some truth in my assumptions or prejudices, call them what you like, that because you were concentrating more on those senses, because you needed them more, that's why they develop and improve in the way they function?
That is very much a possibility. Yeah, at this point, we're not entirely certain exactly why. We just know what happens. But I think we would need to do some more longitudinal studies where we follow individuals right from birth all the way through. I think that would be a good way to 100% know.
Now, you tested people who either had no sight at all from birth or from very early on. But what do you know about people who lose their sight in later life? Do they gain with their other senses?
So far as I know from the literature that there are also gains, but they're not quite as strong as what you find in individuals who lost their sight earlier. And that goes also for the brain changes themselves. They're not quite as strong.
So do we think that they would get stronger as someone was blind for longer, assuming there were no other factors involved, connected with the ageing process, I suppose?
It might be, and I think that plays also into your earlier question about whether or not it has to do with being forced to use the other senses more. I think it's something that we're still examining.
So what do you think could be the implications of these findings? What do they mean? What might they enable us to do?
The results really indicate that there are both areas of increased and decreased connectivity in individuals with profound early blindness compared to controls. And it shows us that more of the brain changes, I think, than we initially thought. I think a lot of previous studies really focus on the occipital, typically visual part of the brain, but our research kind of shows that there are changes throughout the brain, not just in the typical visual areas.
So what do we need to do next, do you think?
Well, I think we brought up a number of interesting areas for future development, such as, following individuals right from birth or right from the moment they lose their sight through development, monitoring, their exposure to auditory environment and things like that. I don't know how feasible that would be, but the other thing that we as a research group are really starting to concentrate on is to use the same multiple modality approach to study other forms of visual impairment. In particular, As we are getting better and better at saving infants with brain damage, more of these children are surviving and living longer. One of the consequences, though, is that they often have visual impairments because of their brain damage. And so we are trying to use the same research approach to see how the brain damage relates to the visual dysfunction and whether or not the brain is able to compensate in any way, much like it happens in ocular blindness.
So really, this whole business about the plasticity of the brain, it could have enormous implications, couldn't it?
Very much so. I think we're just barely scratching the surface right now.
Corinna Bauer, well, listening to that with me is musician Balaji Srivastav. Balaji, what do you make of that? Do you think your hearing is better, and if so, why?
I can't say anything like that because it's in theory, yes, it sounds like that, but no, because I have been blind since the age of 8 months, so I just grew up as a blind person.
And I guess you took what you had for granted in a way without wondering why it was there. See, the research also shows that people blind from an early age, like you and me, are better at distinguishing different frequencies, which I suppose could give credence to the idea that we'll be good at music, because people tend to assume that blind people are going to be good at music, don't they?
I don't believe in that, because we were 115 boys in our school, and I'm the only musician who is here.
I'm glad you said that, because I used to stand next, I went to a blind school as well, and stood next to kids who were tone deaf. They couldn't hit a note. Anyway, come on, Balaji. You've been here 10 minutes and you haven't played your sitar yet. So could you show it to me?
Sure.
Well, by the magic of sitar, Balaji and I are now sitting on the floor. I've got down here because I've never held or touched a sitar. So can you...
Well, first of all, I give you the sitar so you can hold it. And you can feel...
It's huge.
It's a huge...
The bottom is vast.
Exactly.
And that's the gourd. That's what you call the gourd.
Yes.
It's beautifully decorated, isn't it? Very tactile.
And if you can hold the sitar now...
Yes. Would I hold it sort of like a guitar, almost?
Almost like guitar. No, it's a 45 angle.
Oh, right. So I hold it upwards.
Yes. So if you can... And... Your
my first chord, Balaji.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You have to cuddle, yeah.
Oh, like a cuddle.
Yeah. Sitar is a very lovely instrument. You have to love it.
I'm cuddling the sitar.
Yeah, and then and it goes like this.
Yeah.
No. Thumb goes
with the plate.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it.
One of the things that I know you're dedicated to is passing your obvious joy in music onto other visually impaired people. Tell me about the Inner Vision Orchestra project.
The Inner Vision Orchestra is full of blind people, and everybody is a wonderful musician, and they are from different countries in the world, based in London. When we get festivals, we play together.
And you think it's really important that visually impaired people, as it were, draw out their musical talent?
It is very important because we may not see, but we want to be seen and heard by everyone.
I mean, if people are listening and thinking, I'd love to get involved, do they have to be able to play something to start with?
Not necessarily. Actually, I have got a 92-year-old lady who never played any instrument. When she came to my workshop, she said, what can I do? And I said, hold a cymbal. And she starts playing cymbal. And now she plays cymbals without even asking. She just goes anywhere and starts playing cymbals. In the taxis. And she goes in any function. And she doesn't ask. Wherever the music goes on, she starts playing.
Right.
And nobody says anything to her because she's so old. She's very nice. And she's doing great service to music.
And as well as the Innovision Orchestra and all the other things you're doing, you also played with the Para Orchestra, connected with the Paralympic Games?
Yeah, Para Orchestra. I played with Paralympics. And they have got different disabled people as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Very nice experiences, different experience.
One thing I ought to make clear, because we've talked mainly about traditional Indian instruments, but you don't just play traditional music. Your style is very eclectic, isn't it? You use a lot of Western music. Tell me about that.
Because I have learned some Western tunes, and for me, music is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, with any instrument. So if I can hear, I can just immediately copy it, and I can memorize it, and I can play. So I've played with quite a few Western songs and with Western instruments.
And I mean, do you have a preference? Are these traditional instruments really the kind of base of what you do, or are you motivated by just any music, really?
Now, my main preference is to play Indian classical music. But for me, I love to play with any kind of music and any musicians, as I have played with lots of different musicians.
So just finally, Baluji, if people are listening to this and they want to connect with you and join in, what can they do? How can they get in touch?
Well, we do some workshops in Rich Mix at the moment, residency workshops we are doing every fortnights. Started from 13th of March and every 2 weeks on Monday. We do it for 1 year. So people can come and join there. All visually impaired, all kinds of... They don't have to be great musicians. They can be anybody and everybody.
And that's all based in London?
Based in London, which is a Shoreditch station.
And I think you're doing some concerts in the next few weeks, and some touring?
Yes, I've got some nice tour for 8 concerts, which is now, the next one is Cambridge, which is already sold out. A few more concerts like that.
OK.
Yeah.
That's almost it for today, but we do want you to play us out, Baluji. Let's just tell people, if you want to comment on anything you've heard, you can call our action line for 24 hours after the programme on 0800 044 044, or you can email intouch@bbc.co.uk. And as I said, there's more information about Baluji's work on our website. So from me, Peter White, producer Cheryl Gabriel and musical maestro Baluji Srivastav, goodbye.